What's up, guys? This is building a stock market tracker with react.js part 8. We left off in the last video struggling to get the close price from the previous day of trading because we realized that we needed to account for weekends, bank holidays, all this sort of stuff. Basically, we need to account for when the market is open. And I was getting a little worried because I thought, oh man, that's going to be complicated. And then I did some more research into the IEX Cloud. And down here in the, let's see, where is it? It's all the way down here in the reference data. They have this US holidays and trading dates. And this is actually exactly what we want. So this call allows you to fetch the number of trade dates or holidays from a given date. So we can actually modify this to get the previous day. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, so this should be a lot easier than expected. So let's go back over to our app, and I'm just going to open up the JavaScript console, and let's stick this back down at the bottom. Let's clear all this stuff. And I put down here a comment with a functioning URL. And so in the URL here, we can see that we have dates, trade, last, and then when I worked on this, it was the 13th, so it's the 15th. So I'm going to specify today. Okay, and then what we need to do is just fetch the URL, dot then response, yeah, and then response.json, and then console.log. Okay, so we get back an object, or an array of objects rather, and so we get that the previous day, the one that we're looking for, is the 14th. Okay, so let's try that again with our problematic day, which was the 13th, I believe. Yeah, that would have been Monday. And then run the fetch again, and let's see what we get back. So here we get back the 9th. So basically what we need to do is run this and then set the day equal to this. So we have two little tasks we need to do. We need to run this get previous day URL, and then we need to, the first step actually is to format the current day in this manner. So we need to format this date first. So let's just pretend for a second that we have 2020 0409 is our date string coming back, and then we want to say date, let's call it my date equals new date, and then we'll just pass that in. So let's look at my date really quick. So this has the time zone baked in, so this actually changes the day to my local time here, but that's not something that we should get too worried about, I don't think. So what we can do is say mydate.to ISO string, and let's look at that. So that sets us back straight in terms of the actual date, and it starts to format it in a way that makes sense, kind of. I mean, it's basically spitting out what we put in before this t. So let's do dot split t, see what that does. So that creates an array where we get the first chunk and then before the t, and the last chunk after the t in an array. So let's get the first one. And then we just want to drop those dashes. And the reason we're doing all this is because the IEX spec actually expects it in that format. So you can see here that they expect start date in this YYYMMDD, and then they return back a different format, which is an interesting decision, but whatever. So what we can do here is just say dot replace, and then we need to do dash. So you can actually do replace dash. That's not what we wanted. What did we want? So what is this? So then we want to do dot replace. Oh, I didn't give it anything to replace it with. That's why we got undefined as the replacement. So we can do that, but it only does the first one. So now we could call it again. That might work actually. It will work. But that's kind of wonky. So what we want to do is actually this. We can give it this G for global. So we're going to take what we just did, because it formats the day properly, and we're going to say in here var today equals a new date, and then I'm just going to paste on my ISO string stuff. Sorry for the abrupt video cut. I had to step out for a second. But anyway, so you can see here we have this dot replace with the G in there. And so what I want to do here, first of all, let's just do this bit by bit. So it's console.log today. And we should see here exactly what we want. So what we want to do is use this URL down here to go ahead and get the last trading day. So let's do that, but let's just stick with console logs, and we're just going to kind of rough this in, and we're going to have to change it up to actually get it working. So what we're going to do is say URL equals, and then let's copy this line, and then let's modify it to match our thing over here. So I copy everything up to the question mark, and we're going to just paste that straight after the base URL. Let's change this to a question mark because we actually don't have any other parameters, so that needs to be a question mark. So now we're getting everything, but we want to go ahead and put in the correct day, right? So we're going to put today. Okay, so let's console log that URL to see what that looks like. URL is not defined. It doesn't like, oh, I didn't spell const right. That'll do it every time. Okay, so here we go. We got the URL printing out. Okay, now let's go ahead and fetch it. So what we want to do here is just fetch URL dot then response dot JSON, and then we want to then console dot log. Alright, so let's have a look at this when it comes back eventually, if it comes back eventually. It doesn't look like we're getting anything back, does it? Oh, there they go, just now. That was slow. Okay, so we get the 14th back here. That's interesting how slow that was. But we're getting it back, so let's go ahead and make use of that. Okay, so what we need to do to get yesterday's close actually is, first and foremost, we need to get, so we'll say this dot maybe stock dot get yesterday's, get last trading day, maybe date. I was going to say day and didn't commit. Okay, so we need to get last trading date, date, and then we need to click in or kick into then date. Let's see here. How do I do that? Like that. And then we'll need to put that in there. So we need to define this get last trading date, and we may want to change this from yesterday to last trading day or something, but we'll worry about that later. So we'll say get last trading date. It just takes a date, and we'll call it today because that's how we called it down there. And let's put a comma to get our syntax right. And then we just need to actually, you know what? Let's call that just date because that's what we're doing here. We need to run our formatting. And then what we want to do is let's see, we need to return, let's see here, so what do we data is what we're getting back, so we need to return this promise here, so fetch, so we need to do our URL, right, and then we need to fetch all the way up to the JSON, and then we need to quit right there. All right, this is a little bit more code than I normally like to write. This is kind of a huge mess. I like to do things a little more incrementally, but I'm just trying to rough this in. So let's save and see what happens. It's probably going to break. Has to at some point, right? No, it looks like it may have worked. Awesome. That's pretty weird though, because we haven't actually done anything with data yet, so I'm a little bit concerned about that. Additionally, let's see here. First of all, let's clean up some of our console logs, because we have console logs going wild in stock row over here. So I don't want to log this anymore. We know what's going on with that. Got a few warnings. Not going to worry about those right now, but I'm going to go ahead and console.log data here. I'm really curious about how that's pulling back the way that it is, but for now, let's not worry with it. So what we want to do here is called data.date. So we want to say get yesterday's close URL. Oh, it's because we have it freaking hard coded in here. That's a trick. So down here we actually have the date hard coded still. So of course it's still working. We haven't actually tried to implement this yet. Okay, so all we've managed to do is just add latency so far, because we're just doing one query first for another API endpoint. But we need to make use of this data, so we're going to say data.date. And then down here, I'm actually going to change this variable name to yesterday, which isn't really right. Let's say last trading date, right? And then here we're going to change this to be, now keep in mind what these percentages are over here on the right side of the screen. So we have 4.93, and I suspect that's not right. So I mean, it can't be right because that's coming from the wrong day. So once we save this, let's see if that changes. So it should be something different than 4.93. Can't get fixed. Okay, so let's see what happens if we console log last trading date right here. Undefined. So right here, let's console.log data one more time. Did I get something wrong? Okay, so we have data. Oh yeah, it's date. It's got to be the first. Okay, sorry. So we need to do data like that, and let's see what happens. Okay, it doesn't like that. Okay, because it actually is wanting us to format the date in the same manner. So what I'm going to do is say, I'm going to make a new method, format date. So I'm sorry, I'm just kind of talking through this really quick. You can see here in our console.log that we're doing this 2020-04-14. What it actually wants in the exact date query here is that same format that we had to write above. So we're going to say format date, and then I'm going to pass in a date, and I'm going to call a new date object on it. Okay, and we're going to return that. Yes, like that. And then so we'll say var today is format date, and then here we'll say we'll keep this as date, and then we'll say last trading date is that So, and then I'm going to get rid of my console.log there, and we'll save and see where we end up. Okay, so we have a syntax error. Format date, I need my arrow. Format date is not defined. It's because I need to call stock.format date. Okay, now what the heck is the problem? Okay, so let's just try to debug this. I'm going to console.log the date right here. Okay, so that's fine. I'm going to console.log last trading date. Okay, so we get 2020. So what's weird is I saw in there you can see in here some of the prices started flashing in. If I'm going to keep doing this a little bit. It's blowing up at some point because maybe some data is not coming back properly. That's kind of tricky. So let's go. So see here, right there, you saw the little red flash in. So that means that this is executing, but it can't read property toFixed of null. So let's actually take away the toFixed on this applied data for just a second and see what happens. Everything comes in fine. That is very weird. So what we want to do is probably only call this if price is here. So if I save it again, what happens? It doesn't like it. Okay, so let's see if we can figure this out. Well, for one thing, I may not need to call toFixed on price because in actual fact, like it's already coming back with well, no, we wanted to have toFixed on there. So what I'm going to do is actually say const formatted price equals, and then ask a question, data.price equals undefined, and say, I don't know, null or data.price what is it? toFixed 2, and then just change this to be formatted price. So that's kind of crazy how long that takes. So you can see here now we're not exploding. We've got our formatted price showing up, so we get 2 decimal places and everything. Google isn't coming back right here for some reason, which is strange. I don't know why I had that on mobile preview. Anyway, Google isn't coming back with data, so it's saying that it lost 100%. So that's no good. We probably don't want that. Let's see. So I think I'm going to have to kind of read through this again later and see if I can come up with any better ideas. Because, I mean, I don't know. That's crazy. Google's coming in now. You know, what we probably need to do is have this periodically go back, and if it finds, you know, data, you know, put it in. Probably we don't want to display, you know, if we don't have some data, we don't want to display most likely, you know, minus 100%. That's not good. Okay, so here's what I think we're going to need to do. So this get last trading date, we are running it before every get yesterday's close. Now, get last trading date seems to be really slow as a query. I noticed that earlier, that those took a little while to come in. So really what we want to do is run that like once. We don't want to run that for every stock in our list. That's kind of terrible. So what we want to do most likely is bump that back up above stock row, run that once, and then once we have that data, um, run all of these get yesterday's closes for everything. So I'm going to have to think about the best way to do that. Um, so that'll be probably the next video. I think this is actually, we've got one little box right here, and it feels like we really haven't done a lot, but you see how much code we're writing here for that one box. So I'm really trying to work out how to do this kind of thing in React. Like I said, I'm more of a Ruby developer for the past while. So I'm kind of trying to get my head around it. I've gotten a couple of comments saying that there's newer ways to do some of this stuff, and that's fine. The reason I'm doing it this way is because anybody who watches this, I want you to go through this with me and experience the difficulty of sort of trying to figure it out. And then once we arrive at whatever we arrive at, and if we implement some new solutions, it'll make a lot more sense as to why they work the way that they do. If you're still with me at this point, thank you so much for watching. I hope this is helpful. I hope you're enjoying it, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.